Welcome, welcome to another episode of The Shaman's Wife. I hope you're enjoying this mini-series with my dear friend Alicia. And of course, if you want to find out more about Alicia, or more about me, or more about the Heads Together podcast, go to the show notes. There will be all the links you need. And if you haven't already, I urge you to pre-order your copy, or if you're listening to this when the book has now been published, order your copy of The Shaman's Wife. This is a transformational book, and I'm so honored to have Alicia with me for this mini-series where we are diving into the background to this powerful memoir. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Heads Together podcast. I'm Jill Mokes, and I am obsessed with cutting through the noise when it comes to growing your business. Each week, via intimate coaching conversations and inspirational stories, I share what it really takes to get the results you want in a way that feels right to you. I am all about attracting higher ticket opportunities, building authentic relationships, and creating the abundant, full-fat version of your dream business. I mean, how many of us have beavered away creating a light version of what we really want? The thing is, I honestly believe when you're outstanding at what you do, there is no limit to what you can achieve. So, are you ready to put our heads together and make it happen? Let's go. Hey, Alicia, welcome back for episode 3 of our mini-series based around your incredible book, The Shaman's Wife. Like I said in the last episode, this is so much more than a memoir, which is why I'm so thrilled that you've agreed to come and really break down some of the themes that come out of the book with us. Thanks for coming back again.
Thank you. This is a great conversation.
It really is. It really is. Thank you. So in episode 3, I want us to talk about heeding the call. And there are kind of a couple of angles I really want to talk to you about where this is concerned, because my feel after reading the book is that there were 2 very pivotal callings that you responded to, I guess. But I want to start off with the call to move to Ecuador, that huge decision we talked about last time. I mean, an incredibly big decision that you made. Can you tell us a bit about that experience of feeling called to do something so big?
Yeah. So I went to Ecuador for the first time in April of 2012. My divorce had actually come through January of 2012 after being separated for 2 years. And it was a combination of a lot of loss, a lot of change. And when I went to Ecuador, it wasn't with an intention other than to help my friends kind of thing. But I was already on the path. I was already feeling what I call the inkling. The inkling to me is a kind of nudge that comes from the inside that says something's not quite right. And I think anyone who starts heeding the call, if you will, or noticing that there's something inauthentic in their life, starts by getting this thing that I call the inkling. It grows into like an intolerance of things in your life. And you start noticing that you don't value those things anymore. And you start asking questions about like, why am I doing this? And why does it feel this way? And that kind of thing. So when I went to Ecuador and I was able to see the possibility of a different kind of life, and of course, I had been on a spiritual quest for most of my life anyway. And then I'm introduced to this man who in conversation, I mean, they were just the most amazing conversations. And in a way, he was the embodiment of that call. He was the one saying to me, this is what's up for you if you decide to make a change. And that's kind of the way it worked for me. I didn't take the decision lightly to just leave the United States for good. It was after a lot of going back and forth to Ecuador, trying to see if this is something. And then, of course, the dream of building the retreat center. made that kind of call even bigger and saying, okay, well, I can heed this call to do something different in service of, through my own spiritual growth and with the assistance of this person who had a wisdom that I was just at the beginning of that road, just tapping into, not only his, but the way my own wisdom started to rise when I said, yes, I'm going to accept that call. That's the way I would say it happened.
That's so interesting when you talk about that rise that happened when you said yes. I'd love to just pull on that a little bit, because we find making big life-changing decisions incredibly difficult. Everyone finds, of course, it goes without saying, making huge decisions that affect the trajectory of your life is hard. So I'd love to understand a bit more really about the courage to do that. And was meeting Napo and the conversations you had with him, was that the comfort you needed, I guess? Did it make you feel safe enough to accept the call and to kind of take your first foot, if you like, on that heroine's journey? I'm interested in that because I think a lot of listeners and readers of your book will be contemplating big decisions. I think all of us, and particularly women in midlife particularly, tend to be contemplating big decisions around what they want to be doing, where they want to be physically and emotionally. What can you offer to those women from your story, from your attuning with your gut, accepting the call, following the call, and feeling that rise of affirmation, if you like, once you did?
When I met Napo, it was like ignition, I guess. I actually wasn't afraid, which is kind of strange. I wasn't really afraid. I didn't feel as much fear. And I think that was because the possibility of leading this kind of different life was so compelling. And I think that's the key, right? When we need a life transition, what we're looking at looks like a big abyss, a dark hole, a void. It's the unknown, right? And so the idea is to leave the safety of your everyday routine, what you know, and then enter into this unknown. At first, what it does is it feels like, oh my God, this is so scary. I don't know what's in there, kind of thing, right? What happens is if you take one step at a time, and for me, Napa was that guide. So I don't know if it was safety that he provided, but it was guidance, I think is a better word. There was a guide. There was someone that had already been on this journey and knew the road that I did not know. And I was willing to embark on that road because there was someone who had done it and could guide me. And so entering into the unknown with a guide, I guess you could say, made it feel more safe, I guess, in that regard, safe or secure. But it was the transformation of that void from a place of fear and then transforming it into a place of possibility. And I think that was the big key. And I think for anyone who's going through a life transition, how do you transform that? Like, I think last time we talked about being in the bardo, I know that it's not this, and I'm in the middle, what we call the bardo, but I don't know what this is over here. And so in the middle, this place of transition is where possibility resides. But it looks scary because, of course, we don't know what's in there, and we don't know if we're capable, and we'll never know that we're capable until we actually step in and do it. And so I think that was the process that I went through, and that I see a lot of people who come to work with me here in in Portugal on their personal retreats. They are in that place, and my job is to help them see that void as a place of possibility, limitless possibility, which is why it's called Becoming Limitless.
Absolutely. Yeah. If ever there was a good name for a retreat, that is it. Maybe the call for those women isn't as huge as uprooting their life and moving to another country, but actually making a decision to invest in yourself and to take yourself out of the everyday and come and spend time with you in Portugal. For some women, that is a call, and they need to learn how to heed the call, which I guess is the topic of this podcast. Is there anything that we can do as women that will help us stop craving the crystal ball? Because that's what I think I'm hearing from you, is that a lot of fear and trouble that we have making big decisions is because we want a crystal ball. We want to be able to look into the future and know that we made the right decision. You didn't have that when you went to Ecuador. The women who come and decide to come and spend time with you in Portugal, they don't have that crystal ball either. And what was interesting for me is you referred to Napo as the guide, as the person who had kind of already walked the path. So that was a comfort. That's the closest thing we ever get to a crystal ball, isn't it? And I think that is also the way that you are a guide for the women that you work with. You are someone who has made these huge decisions, listened to her intuition, heeded the call to do something very different. I'd love to hear about that in the context of the women who come and work with you now.
I love that metaphor about the crystal ball. None of us have a crystal ball, whether we're in life transition or not. I mean, the biggest illusion is that we have any control over our life, really. You just don't know what's going to happen. I remember this song I heard. I can't remember the name of the song, but there's a line in it that has always stuck with me. And the line is, it only takes a phone call to drop you to your knees. And I've had that phone call. We've all had that phone call where your whole life changes. And it could be a phone call, or it could be, like for me, a decision made on a whim. Sure, I'll go to Ecuador and I'll help out, never knowing this decision that I just made because it was a whim, really, would completely change the trajectory of my life. In many ways, what we're looking at is an unraveling or an undoing of our current reality so that we can create a different kind of reality that is more aligned. So you mentioned women in midlife. Interestingly enough, there's just in terms of human development, we're not the women we were in our 20s or in our 30s. When women or anybody hits, 50s, 60s, even 40s, a lot of things in your life change, and what matters changes, what you value, how you feel about yourself. There's a lot of stuff going on. And it's like a recalibration that happens in this life transition. You are recalibrating. So although you think it's the unknown, right? What you're recalibrating is to what's already present within you that you have not acknowledged, that you have not accepted or embraced. You have not come to terms with the person you are today. You're holding on to the person you were yesterday because that's what you know. And the inquiry in this place of transition is, who am I today? It's not, what am I going to do with my life? That's the wrong question. The question is, who am I now and who am I becoming? Because when you understand that, when you accept it, when you embrace it, then you start recognizing your own true nature in the present moment. And then it's like, oh, now that I know that about myself, I know that I can be doing this, or that. And then it becomes just planning, right? It's the first part that's really difficult, is that inquiry into who am I today and catching up to yourself, recalibrating to who you are today. And I'm not saying doing surgery on your past, by the way. This is something I have a retreat client here this week, as a matter of fact. And what I tell her is, we're here. All that I have been is right here, but I want to go here. And then I want to go here. And then I want to go here. So there's no surgery required. It's an amplification of who you are and who you're becoming based on what matters to you today. And I think in the midlife part, especially for women, I would say for women, you are reclaiming your true power, what I call of your feminine nature, all your hard-won wisdom, all your authenticity, all the contributions. You come to a place of owning it and seeing, oh yeah, I own this. And I'm not afraid of it anymore. And I'm not going to care what other people think. That's a really big one. Sometimes in life transitions, people are as much afraid of what will everybody else say about me, about what I want or what I want to create. They're as afraid of that as the actual transitional process. I look at that as an inquiry into who you are today, because it's all right there. You think it's the unknown, but it's actually right there. That's the heeding part, I guess. That's the heeding the call part, right?
Yes.
It's listening and not refusing what is real for you today.
Gosh, that's incredibly powerful. As a little aside, often as a podcaster, we cannot help but try to plan our next question while our guest is answering. I don't do that when I talk to you, Alicia. You are so captivating when you speak. So I've literally been sitting here so immersed in what you were just saying. It's a really good experience having this sort of deep conversation with you. I just want you to know that.
Thank you.
You just made a cracking point, which is about listening. We don't always listen. We take the truths of the past, we bring them with us, and we don't listen to changes. So we carry on with the legacy stories, all of the things that we wanted when we were in our 20s and 30s. And I think you're so right. The ability to just tune in to what we are and who we are now. That is the difference. That is the difference. And that is what I think makes big decisions way easier to make, because you said yourself, after that, it's just planning.
Yeah, that's the easy part. There's a distinction, for me anyway, between what we have learned about the hero's journey and the heroine's journey. So for me, the hero's journey or the hero's call is a call to adventure, but not for women. For women, the heroine's call is a call to self-discovery and transformation. It's different for us. And that's why I say it's that self-discovery piece, the who am I piece, that is integral to be in this really uncomfortable place of the unknown and transform it into possibility. Because once you understand that it's already there, you just haven't heeded it. Now you're heeding it. Now you're listening to yourself. I often tell my clients, write yourself a letter as if you were 5 years in the future and saying, this is what I want you to know about yourself today. And when they do that, it's just enough of a separation for them to actually listen without judgment. And that's the judgment piece is really difficult. And I think the other part of the difference between a hero's journey and a heroine's journey is that in the hero's journey, he refuses the call at first. Women don't actually refuse it. They don't reject it. Let's put it that way. They sit with it for a while. They wonder about it. It's an active thing that's happening. And then they go all in. And this is what I see when, people come here to do a retreat. They're all in. There's no half measures here. Fair warning to anyone. And I tell them that that's where the juice is, right?
Yeah.
That's where you can do that inquiry. And going back to the word that we used at the beginning, in a safe place, without judgment, without the pressure that you have from your everyday life and all the obligations and responsibilities. And so many women are people pleasers. And so what they do is they put themselves last. They don't acknowledge who they are today because, oh, heaven forbid it not please someone, or it cause conflict, or it go against what they've been told they should do or should be. And all of that is tangled up in this process. It's complex. And once you start pulling at those things and unraveling them without making them wrong and just seeing what is the amplification I want in my life versus what is the change I want in my life. I think that's a big distinction.
That's huge. Can you say that again?
What is the amplification I want in my life versus looking at it as what is the change I want in my life?
That feels really important. What is the amplification? I'm interested, Alicia. Obviously, you heeded the call. I love how you explain the heroine's journey, that journey of self-discovery rather than necessarily of adventure, although often we crave adventure too, but it is a more inner journey of self-discovery for us as women. You heeded the call. Eventually you moved to Ecuador, you built the retreat center. But of course, you are not in Ecuador now. You are in the beautiful Algarve of Portugal. And so at some point you heeded another call. You heeded the call to come away. And without, obviously, we're not going to retell the entire story of the book in the podcast. You need to read the book for that. A lot of what is in the book would be way too powerful to share in this format anyway. It's quite intentional. I don't want to go into the real intricacies of the book. But can you tell me a little bit about some of the feelings when you left, of the courage you had to kind of dig up again to make another big decision opposite to the one you'd originally made?
Remember, I said that the heroine's journey is a call to self-discovery. And what I found through the process is, in the time that I was in Ecuador, I was becoming a different kind of person. At first, I was becoming a person that I didn't like, that I wasn't resonant with, that some part of, because it was a culture that was, women are seen oftentimes as second-class citizens and such. So the reason I left was, I went from like surrendering who I was to discovering who I was. And then once I discovered who I really was, and through that process, understanding that I was so much more courageous, so much more resilient than I ever thought I could possibly be. And I just didn't know that I had that in me, right? And that's what happens through the heroine's journey. You find out that there's so much more, and you get in touch with that feminine wisdom, that feminine nature as a strength, as the thing that holds you. And at that point, there was huge dissonance with my life in Ecuador. And so for me, it was the transformation, the realization that I had transformed, and this wasn't the way I wanted to be living. That's how I was able to move away from everything in Ecuador and come here, because I had, we talked about amplifying. I had grown beyond this to this, and all of a sudden to here, because it was an intense number of years. And then it was like, okay, well, then I need to be somewhere else. And for me, returning from the journey and the call gave me the gifts, not only my own internal gifts, my own recognition of my own power, if you will, but also a really strong desire to be at service to others and to share that wisdom gained by that transformation. Because in the heroine's journey, it's in the sharing of the gifts of transformation where our power to enact change lies. And this is why I wrote the book, because the book is my way of sharing my experience and the wisdom gained, so that some woman who reads that book can tap into the possibility for herself, even if she's feeling either hopeless or stuck or whatever it is, that it is possible that you can be more, and you can transform, and you can answer that call and live the life that you were meant to live.
Amazing. Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing what you shared today. I'm conscious that we have teased people a little bit with leaving out such a lot of the story, I guess. But I think if you come back for episode 4, rejoin us for episode 4, because Alicia and I are going to start a conversation in that episode about love. That will fill in some of the gaps for you. Honestly, Alicia, I can't wait for that conversation. I feel like every time we talk, we go deeper. I feel like I know you more, and it's just such a joy to be joined by you for this. Thank you.
No, it's always a pleasure, Jill. I love these conversations, and I'm sure that people who are listening to your podcast will definitely gain at least a lot of food for thought.
Absolutely. 100%. Okay. I will see you back here for episode 4. Thanks, Alicia. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
hope you enjoyed this episode and that getting our heads together this week has filled your mind with what's possible. If you love the show, would you do me a massive favour, please? Would you leave a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts? It would really help me put more heads together, reach more ears and expand more minds. Until next week, bye for now.